we wanted to talk to you about is around hard conversations and being authentic. You come from a humble background, you say, and you always had a dream. You wanted to go to the US, you wanted to do PhD, and you wanted to work at NASA. For a decent amount of time, a lot of that was happening, right? You did go to the US on full scholarship. You were pursuing a PhD in physics. And then you said that I had hard conversations with myself and I chose to walk out. And I think that shows courage. And at the same time, it made you an authentic person. We wanted to understand what were those hard conversations, because a lot of us go through that, right? And the first thing you think about is, what will our parents say? Log kya kahenge? All of that comes to your mind. So what are those hard conversations that give you courage and eventually lead to that authenticity?
No, I wouldn't give myself as much credit as I seem to have when you narrate this incident. I'll tell you what the facts were. The facts were, I was really good with what I was doing. I was top of my class in the PhD program. I was doing something that I always wanted to do. It was my dream. There was no force at any level. This was completely my choice. My parents were convinced this is the absolute best orbital shift in our lives. But what I realized is that I was not happy doing what I was doing. I was like this complete dead soul who used to get up every day, go to class, give my exams, stop the exams, come back home, sleep, repeat. And at that point of time, the question that I asked myself was, hey, if I'm not happy doing something, what's the likelihood that I'll be really good at it? And my intuitive mind told me, not that I had any experience with that, is the likelihood is really low, because if you're not happy doing something, how could you possibly do it for a really long while and hope to be really good at it? And I really wanted to be the best at what I do. So if I imagine myself as a NASA scientist, I was like, I have to be the best NASA scientist that NASA's ever had. But that most likely will not be possible if I'm not happy doing it. But what made it truly easy is I was on 100% scholarship. Because frankly, if I had my own money or my parents' money invested in that, I can assure you that decision would perhaps not have happened as easily as it did. But I had nothing to lose except for time. And at 22, I didn't feel that I'd lost any time, because I had that confidence that I can recover from it somehow, whatever way it is. But I just need to make this decision where I should be doing something that I am actually happy with and not being forced to do, at least by my own merit. So the hard conversation was simply this question: if I'm not happy, what's the likelihood that I'll be really good at it? And the answer seemed to be no, 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 no. And thankfully, the context was that I hadn't put in my own money, so it made it really easy. It was extremely tough facing my parents. It was extremely tough facing the world, because this is 2004 that I'm talking about. Nobody in their right mind was dropping out of education. Today, when I speak to kids and they're like, I've dropped out, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool, because everybody successful has dropped out of something, so you must be really cool too. But back then it wasn't. It was suicidal. And my parents were absolutely convinced this would be the worst decision of my life. And it's not that I had the confidence or the foresight that it would be a great decision. I'm just a survivor where it worked out. And this is classic survivorship bias, where you're sitting in front of somebody who just lived to tell the tale. I could have very well just completely sunk and gone into oblivion, and nobody would have heard of me, least of all me. But I'm just grateful that things worked out. It's stemmed with that simple question: if I'm not happy, will I be ever the best at it?
Amazing. We'll take one quick question before we get to the rapid fire. Parth, why don't you ask a question?
So I just want to bring in the elephant in the room into the conversation, which is AI. Right? AI has impacted our lives in a big way. It has almost changed our entire life. All of us, to some degree or the other, we have cognitively offloaded a lot of things, significant or insignificant, to AI, sometimes with a sense of guilt. Now, my question is that how do we, in order to pursue or to, cultivate our own mind, our own thoughts, independent thinking, how do we distinguish between tasks that we can delegate to AI and tasks that we should not delegate to AI? Or should we just say that, we should not delegate at all. We should just think on our own, do on our own.
Sure. That's a great question, Parth. So I'll give you my two sides to it, at least the way that I'm using AI, because I do use it actively. Number one is, don't use AI to create, use AI to elevate. What I mean by this is, you have to do the hard work first yourself, and then you have to use AI to elevate that work. So in your case, let's say it's editorial, you would write your own piece, you will write it through your own raw input your caliber, your capability, your understanding. And then you would use AI as an assistant, as a tool to elevate the quality of it. Not by saying, redraft it to provoke sentiments of X and emotions of Y, blah, blah, blah. But saying, hey, this is my piece. Here's my objective. Here's my target audience. Give me feedback on how far or close I am to achieving that. And it will give you feedback. Then you work on that feedback. You put it up again, keep doing this. At some point of time, you will get to that point. So don't use AI to create, use AI to elevate, number one. Number two, what I find most fascinating about AI, and most of you will not recognize this because of no fault of yours, just because you're all born very recently, is I come from a time where to study, to learn anything used to be insanely hard. Because you had to go to a library, very few of which existed. You had to then dig into encyclopedias, which were almost always booked out. You then had to navigate through pages and felt like a complete duffer because most of it just went over your head. You had no two-way communication. It was always one way. It was always thrown at you. You had teachers who were mostly uninspiring and did not know anything beyond the syllabus. And you didn't have any other avenue for you to get the exposure that you needed to get your hands dirty on a particular subject. Today, if you had to upgrade yourself in any discipline, you could technically do it with 2 to 3 hours of concentrated work, just by jamming with AI, just by making it the tutor, the guide, the mentor, the teacher, and you getting exposed to a whole new degree of learning and understanding at your fingertips. Literally, when you're taking the metro ride from home to work and back over maybe a 2 to 3 day period. That's unprecedented. And you cannot allow that to go to waste. So my best use case of AI is my learning velocity. My learning velocity at the age of 45 is faster than it has ever been. And I'm consuming not at the surface, I'm digging in deep because I have the ability to do that. So I often ask this question to students when I go to attend colleges or school. How many of you are actually more curious than you were because of AI? More often than not, the answer is not so much because they don't know how to measure that curiosity. If you were to ask me that question, I think I am, if not, then at least 100 times more curious than I was 5 years back. Because now nothing is outside of my scope or realm of understanding. मैं कुछ सड़क पे देखता हूँ and I'm like, hey, tool name, why is this happening? And I'm speaking to mostly voice, like I'm not typing and blah, blah, because this is natural language. So, hey, why is this happening? Why is that happening? I've learned so much about India in the last 3 years than I've never before. Like we travel, and before we travel, कोई Lonely Planet होती थी पहले, फिर कोई और किताब होती थी. अब तो यही है, like, give me the history of this place. सब कुछ बता देगा वो. And then you're clicking a photograph. We were there at the Kailasa temple in Ellora, which by the way is a masterpiece. If you think Taj Mahal is the shit, you haven't seen anything. Incredible piece of work. And I'm literally clicking एक चीज, like कोई random Vishnu का अवतार की एक फोटो खींच रहा हूँ. Like, can you please explain that? And I'm getting PhD theses on it. And like, this is insane. This is truly insane. So use AI to elevate your learning velocity. And I think these two. But if you outsource your thinking, you're absolutely right. It's the death trap. That's when it's just downhill from there, because anybody who's doing that is just cognitively dependent, like the way we are on social media for our entertainment.